I actually started competing in pageants when I was 3 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
my mother put me in when I was very young. It was early on that I knew that this was my big dream. It's a culmination of all of my passions. Got into journalism. I wanted to still be on camera. Absolutely love sports. So that was a minor that I was able to tack on pretty easily and was on the production side of journalism, writing, and then of course broadcast. I personally have many, many passions. I know one day it's all going to come together, but I have adjusted paths many times. When I was graduating, it was in 2020, and right when COVID was starting, we didn't have a graduation. My internship at ABC was canceled. I just come from a set of morals and values where I know that I am much more than a pretty face. I'd rather you listen to my voice than just stare at my body.
Today in the podcast studio, we have an individual that I met through a mutual friend a couple of weeks ago. And then, of course, in true Jeremy fashion, I followed her on Instagram and I realized there's so much depth to this person. She's a pageant queen. She went to USC and got a degree in journalism. She was in sports media. And I took a look at your LinkedIn profile. Of course, I had to do my research. And I said, wow. This person is so interesting. I've got to have her on the podcast. And so today we've got Fallon Williams, America's Most Beautiful Miss 2023. Welcome to the studio, Fallon.
Thank you so much for having me. That is right. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, excellent. In my research, I saw that you had kind of like grown up through the Miss Universe pageant and Miss Hollywood Hills and some of the other stuff in Southern California. And then you recently moved here to Houston, which kind of brought us to meeting. But I do want to kind of start off in maybe trying to induce some really interesting stories that could potentially inspire or motivate our listeners. But I want to ask you, can you share a pivotal moment in your journey that shaped your desire to actually become a beauty pageant queen?
Well, I don't know how aware I was of the moment. I actually started competing in pageants when I was 3 years old. So my mother put me in when I was very young. I'm very grateful that she kind of allowed us to explore all extracurriculars until we found our passions. She was a single parent. We grew up, a little bit of a struggle financially, but she made sure that we had all of our options to find our niche. I grew up in the performing arts. I competed in my first pageant at 3 years old. I sang These Boots Are Made for Walking on stage in Missouri. We lived there for a bit. I'm actually from Houston, so I grew up here. But I would compete in pageants every year, and you just grow and grow. But it was early on that I knew that this was my big dream, and it's not necessarily a lifelong career, but it grows into one. Once you win a title, that's just a year, but it can grow into a career, and that's my ultimate dream. So we'll get into that a little bit. But I started early, not my choice, but then I just fell in love with it. It's a culmination of all of my passions. I absolutely love being there.
Excellent. So when you say all of my passions, I'm assuming singing, dancing, really all of the performing arts. And so are those your talents whenever you go through the pageant process?
Yes. So people inside the community will understand different systems have different areas of competition. So I've done ones that have talent and some that don't, so not all of them do. But yes, when I compete in talent, I'll sing, play piano, I do a dance. Girls will do monologues. I mean, you could do anything, but I've grown up singing, acting, dancing, playing piano my whole life. So I absolutely love that performance aspect. But then there's the communication part of it as well. There's modeling, there's fitness, and there's service. And that is a really big part of it as well.
Well, excellent. I've followed you for a few weeks now, and so I know that fitness is certainly a cornerstone of your life. But one of the things that was super intriguing to me, and this is probably what led you to Southern California, was you went to USC to pursue a degree in journalism with a minor in sports media. So walk me through your experience at USC and maybe how that's influenced your career path and aspirations.
Yes, so growing up with the goals of performing arts, I actually didn't immediately go there for journalism, and it was beautiful how it came about. But studying, singing, acting, dancing, I knew I wanted to be a performer of some type, an entertainer, an actor. I was either going to go to New York or LA. I got to NYU. I applied to a couple schools in New York. I applied to 8 or 9 in California. Got into all of them except waitlisted at UCLA, but it's fine because they're the enemy. But I absolutely fell in love with the school. So I started in our dramatic arts program and then realized I love acting, but I want to explore other options and something that might be a little bit more business-like and I can apply, in other areas. So got into journalism. I wanted to still be on camera, and I absolutely love sports. So that was a minor that I was able to tack on pretty easily and was on the production side of journalism, writing, and then, of course, broadcast.
Well, excellent. Well, I noticed on your LinkedIn that you had done an internship with ABC Sports 7. And, I have this this kind of like vision of what I think that it's like behind the scenes whenever I look at like the beautiful blonde broadcasters. And then certainly we've seen in recent years some, accusations and harassment and things of that nature kind of in that community. And so I do want to ask you, like, how was it different in being behind the scenes and in that community than you had initially thought? And I know that you probably can't share too much, right? But like for us who hear these horror stories, how maybe is it different?
So there were actually in our journalism school quite a few women who chose to pursue sports, and I think the industry is growing quite large with women's presence in on TV and in different shows. I was working closely with the production team. I would basically study games and find where the highlights would be produced and then help edit highlights for the news at night. So I was working really closely with Ashley Brewer, who now she was working for ESPN and SportsCenter, and she was actually a big role model for me. Her sister was in my sorority, so she is a beautiful, tall, blonde woman, and I thought, man, she has so much respect for being a woman in the industry, but she knows her stuff, and she's very educated. I personally am grateful to not have experienced any kind of discrimination or gender-based differences, but I definitely know that it occurs. I'm just really proud of all women who are growing this space and people are making space for them. But, when you're a beautiful woman, that's just that for her, I'm sure she's experienced, and men are dominating the sports industry as fans and as, of course, all of the athletes. Of course, there's women's sports as well, but primarily what people watch and everything. So I'm sure it's there, and I hope that it can kind of continue to die down.
Yeah, well, you'd mentioned that you were in charge of kind of like watching some of the highlights and giving definitive areas for edits. I would imagine that there are AI tools that play a big role in editing nowadays. And so how is that, in your experience, going to affect broadcast journalism and commentary and things of that nature, since we can essentially have computers provide a lot of the commentary?
That part of the job was very tedious, and I did enjoy it. My favorite part was getting to do stand-ups, working different events, and I spoke to you about some of those really cool events I got to do. I don't think AI could ever replace those jobs, but hopefully there's a way for producers to be able to utilize it to streamline and to just kind of make everything easier and faster. And I hope there's still, someone still has to press the button, operate the cameras. We don't know where AI is going to take us. I hope it doesn't eliminate too many jobs, but you'll never be able to replace someone on the camera. So there's always people behind the scenes that make that happen, from studying plays. And I think, there's always a human touch, hopefully, that is still going to be needed. We don't know.
I certainly hope so. Speaking about AI, and obviously we're talking about sports editing, sports media editing, I'm also seeing that it's playing a significant role in social media as well, to where there are plugins and tools that individuals, women and men, are utilizing in order to give them, suits and to give them completely different images. And so how do you think that AI is going to affect kind of like beauty imagery as it exists on social media?
Well, AI, of course, is developing, but I don't think it's something new with Photoshop and how things have been edited with filters over time. I think it's a very tricky subject, because when you're someone online who wants to portray your highlight reel, like you were saying a little bit earlier before we started, you can go to my Instagram and it looks like, life is really nice and dandy, and I'm always usually made up. Of course, I try to keep it real. I post myself in the morning, workout, sweaty, dirty hair.
4:50 a.m. this morning.
Oh, yeah, like 4, yes, exactly. I'm there at 4 a.m. every day. But, you know, I try to show the real parts of it as well. But I think it can be really tough because those who are consuming all that content, you're not necessarily going to be able to tell the difference anymore. And I know it can be a tool, but it does get tough when you're still trying to, I would like to market myself as my real person. And it's very tricky. It's very scary a little bit because, you know, young girls are seeing these things that might not seem attainable. And it's not necessarily authentic. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how it progresses over time. I mean, even creating someone who's not even real or a real person, and the whole strike, I was right there. I lived in Hollywood, right on the street, and that was part of the strike that was going on, is replacing actors based on using their image and likeness, which is also an NCAA case they had as well. They weren't paying actors to use their image and likeness, but that was for them actually being on camera. But you could just use somebody without their permission. That's so insane to me. So I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, and we actually recently had on a data privacy attorney on the podcast who was talking to us about AI and machine learning, and he's actually in the process of like creating policy and laws on AI being able to read your thoughts even because technology is advancing at such a rapid rate that we had never seen. And, you know, but you can't replace somebody's heart, their character, their kindness, right? And, you know, I think that there's been this massive initiative over the last several years, specifically in Pageant, to where there is a massive, meaningful component related to like, what is your mission and what type of impact you make on the community, which we'll get into all that here pretty soon. But I also noticed that you did an internship at Nickelodeon. And so walk me through that. Did you get to meet any famous people on set or anything like that?
Yes, that one. I worked under a group where we got to do multiple events. So as where ABC was a longer internship. These were event focused. We did the Nickelodeon Kids Sports Awards. Cool. And a lot of athletes were there hosting, all the Olympians. I met a lot of figure skaters. CP3 was there hosting it when I was there, so I got to meet him. That was really, really fun. I think it was so cool to see how they produced that show. Yeah. And we were just, you know, talent hands, helping edit, things like that. But the other events were definitely star-studded, and I was trying not to be starstruck watching. I'm like, I'm professional, but I'm like, oh, I've been a fan of T-Max since I was like 13 years old. I'm like, calm down. But it was, definitely awesome.
Oh, excellent. I've got a funny story about T-Max. So a friend of mine, this is like back whenever I was like fresh out of high school and he was playing for the Rockets. Yeah. And he used to go into Papado there in Sugar Land because he lives in Sweetwater. And my friend was his server. And he told me that T-Mac only carries hundreds. And he pays in cash everywhere he goes. And that whatever the tab is, he just rounds up to the next 100. So let's say if it was $411, you're getting $500, right? But the struggle is if it's $397, you're getting $400 whenever T-Mac, right? And so Greg, my buddy, the server, told me that he got really good at lobbying T-Mac for just getting that extra piece of pie, or hey, if you get XYZ, I'll give you an extra, because he wanted to game the system. But
throw an extra couple of sides on there and make it 305. That's brilliant.
Exactly. So that's just a funny T-Mac story that probably not a lot of people have heard. And so T-Mac is Tracy McGrady.
Yes.
And then CP3, you'd mentioned Chris Paul. He was probably with the Rockets whenever he was at that.
Yes, he was. I really big Houston sports fan. So I saw T-Mac. He was maybe a little further away from me. And it was one of the first celebrities and stars I'd seen of the weekend. It was the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game. So I'm like, okay, do I say something? He's too far away. And I just grew up with him when it was Yao Ming and all of them on that team. And so I couldn't even bring myself to speak words. I waved at him from 5 feet away, and I was just so embarrassed. How cringy, because I couldn't even bring myself to speak to him at first. And I kind of got used to it over time.
That's funny.
It was hilarious.
That's funny. Did you happen to be at the Houston Sports Awards a couple of weeks ago?
No.
That was exciting. I was there.
Awesome.
Well,
no,
good.
I did not. That's wonderful.
I've got to get you on the invites for those types of things. One of my good friends is on the board, and she had some VIP tickets that I think were unaccounted for at the last moment. So she invited myself and my president, Scott Kelly, and we brought a couple of guests. So that was exciting. So I did see that you worked at the ESPY Awards, and so obviously that must have been exciting. Can you share maybe memorable encounters specifically from the ESPY Awards, because you were with the Kids Awards? Now,
Yes.
were you ever at any of like the big boy ESPY Awards?
Yes, it was the ESPYs. We were working backstage, and probably the biggest star I saw was Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh,
there.
nice.
I got a photo with him. I saw Harden at the ESPYs. At the All-Star game, got a photo with him. Big fan of him. But I was actually assigned a particular celebrity, and she was in Gossip Girl. Her name, I believe, Vanessa, and she was like wanting me to come into the green room with her. She was like, "No, come on in. Like, you're like, can she come in? She have some snacks. Like, let's take some videos together." Just welcoming me into it. And I felt like it was so sweet, because you expect stars to be kind of stingy or private, but it was a wonderful experience. I saw so many. Oh, and then Altuve. I'm walking back. My little brother forgot his jacket, and we go, "Let's just go this way. It's just turn through this way." And we saw someone coming. I was like, "Is that Jose Altuve right there?" Got a photo with him. So
he's hard to miss, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's easy to miss because he's only 5'5", but you definitely know it's him whenever you see him.
Yes, exactly.
So as somebody that, has the degree in journalism, that has the experience in sports media, I want to ask you, what challenges did you face on really breaking into the industry, right? Because you're in Houston now, which is not really the epicenter of national sports.
Right. I personally have many, many passions, and I have adjusted. I know one day it's all going to come together, but I have adjusted paths many times. When I was graduating, it was in 2020, and right when COVID was starting, we didn't have a graduation. My internship at ABC was canceled. So I worked there for a while, and then they said, we don't really need our interns. We're not meeting in the office anymore. And it was pretty detrimental for my hopes, because I thought, I'm at the bottom here at ABC, but I could stay here and I could learn, and one day, get my experience, get my demo growing and my repertoire. But I just struggled really to find a job. And what you do in journalism generally is you go to a small town, broadcast for anything, but sports, anything. And I'm open to other things. I love entertainment, anything. But you go to a small town like Fresno or Frisco, Texas, anything, and you work there for a bit, and you accumulate experience, and then you kind of work your way up. And that wasn't happening for me during COVID. I wasn't going to just randomly move somewhere, and there wasn't TV. So I definitely took a long break, and I didn't qualify for unemployment. That was a really, really hard summer at that time, because you work so hard in school and expect these things to come to fruition from it. And it was a struggle really finding my next path and my next career goal as I shifted.
Well, excellent. Well, because I follow you on social media, I know that you've got your social media marketing business. I know that you spend a tremendous amount of time at F45. You obviously have a job that pays the bills. And so I guess my question for you is, how do you do it all? How do you juggle everything effectively? You mentioned you wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym, right? And then you even alluded to you have time for a relationship even. So what's the secret to juggling everything?
I invest in a really nice planner for myself.
Okay.
I love to stay busy. I thrive on a busy schedule. Growing up, I would have dance practice before school, go to school, have extracurricular after, and then do my homework. And it was the same throughout college and now working as well. After COVID, I started working for a luxury handbag company and was doing their marketing, social media, paid advertising, content, and then started getting into sales as well. So I learned a lot of it there. But it was a growing company, and you learn to manage a lot of roles. And time management is so important. I do a lot of speaking to children in schools. My mother's a teacher, so I'll go and talk to their classes. And setting goals and learning how to manage your time wisely is huge. A big part of it is waking up early. I actually start my work day at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., 4:30. So sometimes I get a workout in before that. Sometimes I fit it in 45 minutes that I have free. I'll go to my next job, and then I'll come home and clean for a bit, and then get to the computer and start my content, start editing. Excellent. So you have to really segment your day out, and if you have free time, get some work done in there, but also scheduling time to enjoy yourself. And you can put those recreational things in your planner. You put your workouts in your planner, and then you don't move them around. I have my non-negotiables, and it just makes time for everything because you're really sticking to it, but planning for things like self-care and dinner dates.
Yeah, no, and I think another thing that you do effectively well is because you are a content creator, all of your ancillary hobbies that you do, whether it's fitness or social, you use those as opportunities in order to build a brand loyalty, right? And those are content opportunities for you as well.
Everything is content. That's
Absolutely.
what we say. We say everything is content.
Everything is
I
content.
have so many ideas in my mind. Sometimes it's hard to execute them all, and I do the marketing for different businesses. My ultimate dream is to grow my own, and so in my spare time, I'm like, I did a workout here, let me film some stuff and try to get a reel on my page here and there. So it is juggling a lot, but I think anything could be content, and even a little clip, you could put a nice message over it, and that could be another reel of 10 seconds.
Absolutely, and totally agree. Well, good. So I know that you have a relationship with children with disabilities, and so I want you to share a story about a particular interaction or project that really touched you deeply during your work with children with disabilities.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I grew up in...
Are we going to have to fix your makeup after this story?
No, but it is touching, and there's so many that have just touched my heart, and sometimes I do tear up, but I won't right now. My mother works at the school that I grew up at, so at T.H. Rogers.
I went to T.H. Rogers.
You're lying.
Yeah,
you're crazy.
on San Felipe.
I went there for 9 years, so they call you a survivor if you went there.
I only went there for a couple of years. It was a magnet school. I took a bus, an hour and a half bus in.
And that's one thing. You can come from all over the city, so you know that there's
such a small world.
Segment, segment for multiply impaired, a segment for deaf students. So I learned ASL at a very young age, and then my mother works with multiply impaired students, which means they have multiple disabilities. So a lot of them are not as functional with motor skill. Some of them don't speak. But with my musical theater school growing up, there was a branch called The River, and that's where I really got into my volunteering. There was a theater therapy program with the performance troupe, so every day of the summer I would get there and we put on plays and shows with individuals with different special needs. So they might be autistic, they might have Down syndrome, some are blind, some are less functional motor skills, but you would just be so amazed at how bright and how functional they are in other areas. Just because this one girl, Whitney, is blind doesn't mean that she's not the most beautiful singer. And you're right here, she needs sensory to guide her through things. I remember one time there was one of the little girls, and the young ones are so sweet, and so I went to, I'm helping them, and I went to grab my bags, and they're always just I said, thank you so much for helping me. Thank you for grabbing that bag. And they say, well, you are helping us. And I was just I don't know, it was so small, but she said, no, you're the one helping us. And that was it carried me through. I think really quickly, my favorite story, though, I ended up being the director for Miss Amazing, which is a special needs pageant.
Wow.
Yes,
okay.
They do those as well. So I volunteered when I was International Junior Miss California, and you basically partner with someone. So I ended up becoming the director and was responsible for putting on the pageant and coming up with a delegation of winners. And I have this one girl named Saida who traveled by bus on her own. She's a victim of sex trafficking as a child and has autism and other disabilities. She's written a book. She does podcasts. She traveled 6 hours by bus to come to my pageant. And when she won, she just broke down in tears, and it was so special. It's just so special to them, that accomplishment. They have the same dreams that we do. They just might not always have the same possibilities and the same opportunities to get there as we do. So being able to provide that for them is really, really rewarding to me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that story. Our executive vice president, Casey Knight, for many years has kind of been a mentor for underprivileged youth in the Richmond-Rosenberg area. And one day I was commending him. He spends tens of thousands of dollars for his mentees every holiday season. And one day I made a comment and I said, man, you do so much for these boys. And he said, it doesn't even pale in comparison to what they do for me, right? And I think that it's very important to recognize that it does kind of induce a very positive emotion whenever you have the capability to give back. Some people have financial resources, right? Some people have time. Some people have emotional bonding and intimacy that breeds amazing mentorship and mentee relationships. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
awesome.
My girls there, I miss them. They're still, cheering me on from afar. So it's absolutely wonderful.
Well, I want to hear a story. And you've heard the term pretty privilege, right?
Sure.
I'm actually curious on what your take is. What role does a woman's physical appearance play in her success in life?
Sure. I am not going to say that presentation doesn't matter to me. Obviously, part of pageantry is looking, your best and having poise and elegance, but they're not beauty pageants.
Okay.
They're not beauty pageants anymore. We don't call them that. Because how are you going to look at Miss Universe and compare the most beautiful Miss Colombia to the most beautiful Miss Venezuela? They're stunning. It's just, apples to oranges, what you like. Do you like bronze? Do you like this?
That was probably a bad example because Colombia and Venezuela
Sure. Yeah, right. There might be similar appearance. Yes. Miss Germany, right? right. So, actually, Miss Colombia has a lot of blondes. You'll be surprised.
Okay.
So, Miss Colombia a couple years ago was
I know
blonde.
where I'm vacationing next week.
But I'm not going to say that it doesn't help you in life. Like if I were to hire someone for a role or for a broadcast and they might be more presentable and they take care of how they look, I think that can contribute to their experience that they're coming in with and that the value that they provide. But it is not everything, and you can have it the other way around too. And you can see these women who might be absolutely stunning, but maybe they don't have communication skills, and that's kind of where you separate in pageants, especially. And so I think a really well-rounded woman who can value all of those, and that's why I love the dichotomy of women, is because we can be beautiful, sexy, smart, strong, fierce, and accomplished and educated. And I think that's what pageants kind of put all together. Like the whole point, which was strange when a Miss America took away the swimsuit a couple years ago, because we're showcasing how hard we work to be healthy and to be proud of our appearance and our physique and take care of your body, which is very important to me. But we can also be servants' hearts. We can also be people who inspire others and who make differences in our communities. Miss USAs have been military women, rocket scientists. It's absolutely incredible that people can do both, and they are both valuable. But not everyone has both of them, and it's really special to find people who do.
Well, excellent. A good friend of mine, her name is Logan Lester, and she was actually Miss Texas, I believe, in 2019.
Yes. We actually, my first Miss Texas teen, we were together, or Miss Houston or something, and she won that year, my first one.
Well, excellent. She's actually good friends with my ex-girlfriend, and she's one of the top producing real estate agents in the state of Texas. And I can attest, because I worked with her, her work ethic is unrivaled.
Yes.
Her knowledge, her ability to understand her clients' needs and influence buyers, sellers.
Absolutely.
She's fantastic, and that's what gets her into the big, almost 7 figures in annual earnings,
she's
right?
Killing it.
She is certainly
following
a killer.
her family, honestly.
They're
wonderful
a little
people.
Decker. Oh,
yes,
good.
I know, the baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, I want to ask you, so how do you handle setbacks or moments of regret? And what lessons have you learned from them?
Oh man, there are just so many examples of setbacks because, I love cliches, and if I say too many, I'm sorry, I'm a personal trainer. It's going to happen. But the difference between successful people and people who don't succeed are that the successful people just never stopped trying. You can hear 100 no's, 100 no's, 100 no's, and then you get one yes, and that could open doors. And then, winning is just a fleeting moment. And then you got to try again. What's next? So there's always going to be setbacks, and I've learned to learn from those lessons. It's not win or lose, but win or learn. It took me 16 years to win my first pageant.
Wow.
I tried again and again and again and again, and every time I would maybe make finalist, maybe the next year I didn't, maybe the next year semifinalist, maybe next year I didn't, and it just toughens you up and you learn about yourself so much. I didn't grow up with this confidence. And you say, well, you've always probably, been a beautiful person. I struggled with my weight a little bit. I compared myself to others growing up. And as someone who does, try to be a high performer, a little bit of a perfectionist, I'm comparing myself to top performers. So I always found something to, be insecure about. And every time I would fail, I would come back, study it, and learn how to do better next time. I competed in Miss California 4 times. I'd won a couple pageants before. It was my first time getting back into the Miss USA system. I went top 15 my first year, studied, worked on my fitness, worked on my interview skills, started more service, and really grew my brand, learned about the system, came back. I got third runner-up, 3 spots away from going to Miss USA. That was more rewarding, and I was more proud of that than winning other pageants because it's so prestigious to get to Miss USA. So I come back the next year, and I'm not expecting to win, but I want to do just as well. I want to make top 5. I mean, everyone wants to eventually win it, right? And so I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it this year. My swimsuit body's really good. Like, I really practiced my answers. We were waiting a little long for interview, and you can hear that I could speak decently well. I love interviewing. Most girls really fear the interview portion. It's my favorite part. I let my nerves get the best of me, I guess. I used to compete in piano, and you could practice all you want and slip a finger in your performance.
Oh, wow.
I get up there. I don't even think I spoke English. My words were so jumbled. That's probably what I really sounded like. And I was like, oh my gosh, you get 2 minutes as well. 2 minutes to show who you are.
So the whole 2 minutes you were jumbling around.
Almost the whole 2 minutes, really. And I couldn't get back on track. And I left the interview, and they probably thought, man, this girl can't even speak English, let alone say something of substance to us. And I didn't even make top 15 for the first time in my pageant career.
Oh, no.
And that was humbling, but I knew where I had faltered, and maybe I can work on my nerves and work on something for the next year. And 2 weeks later, I got an A and B, and I won the title. So it was just absolutely crazy, but there's always setbacks, and I just think pushing through them and being resilient through hard times makes you so much stronger for when it's finally your time.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm just picturing you in the mirror preparing you for the A and B pageant, like right?
Greek grapes.
Greek grapes. Yeah. How now, brown cow, like rum burgundy.
Red leather. Red leather, yellow leather.
Red leather,
Stiff
yellow
eater
leather.
in me coming up.
But it's funny, whenever you talked about jumbling the words, I'm picturing the viral video of Miss South Carolina talking about the Iraq. Yeah.
The worst moment, that's what people think of. I hate how the stereotypical moment people think of is, oh man, that girl. You get nervous when you're especially in a top 5 question. For me, I go really quickly and I want to put a lot into it. Man, and it's hard, so I hope she's lived that through.
I actually want to look her up and see what she's doing now.
Today, right?
Yeah, she's probably like, selling Goosehead insurance in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Poor thing. That's like horrible.
But you talk about insecurities, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit because I know that you're going to take it well.
Yes.
But the other day, I'm looking at your Instagram, and you'd taken a selfie from like a high view. And I guess one of your colleagues held your ponytail up.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, look, I'm not bald, right?
I joke about it.
But I think that it's important to be able to laugh at yourself. And I'm throwing a birthday party in 2 weeks, actually. Yes. And people are going to roast me. It's the roast of Jeremy Jensen. And I think that the whole purpose of it was like, I'm in this season of life of really like owning my truth, right?
Yes.
And I think that being a well-known individual in the Houston community, there are certain things that, maybe can be misconstrued from people playing the telephone game.
Sure.
And I feel like if you just put it all out there on a stage with 250 people in the audience, that's a really effective way to kind of control the narrative. But in your specific situation, walk me through about, bald Fallon.
Yeah, so Austin Ride does my hair and makeup often, and he'll include a couple extensions here. We just joke about my large forehead, and I think it's so funny. So I like to put my hair up when I work out. I took a photo, and I'm like, okay, I have all forehead here. But to be fair, Rihanna and Angelina Jolie both have very large foreheads, and they're stunning. So, but that is just something, everyone has different things. No one doesn't have an insecurity. And for me, I battled struggles with my weight a lot. I battled financial insecurity. Even going to USC, that was crazy for me to see such affluence. Even in the pageant world, it is not a cheap hobby. It is an expensive hobby. And so to come in with my $400 gown and this girl's in a $5,000 gown, that made me insecure sometimes. But it is not the gown. It is not, your insecurities. It's how you find your uniqueness. That's what makes you different. And for me to, I always believe, though, if you don't like something, you change it. And if you really don't like something, if you feel like you're overweight and you hate your body, change it. You can change that. But there's certain things that you need to grow to love about yourself and understand that that's what makes you different and what makes you unique. And I have a lovely protruding crystal skull-shaped Indiana Jones head, and I love it. And it's fine, it holds a crown well.
Well, good. One of my best friends, she picks on her crystal forehead as well.
Yeah, crystal skull.
Riley Satterwhite. I'm going to call you out there, but But no, she's a very beautiful young lady with an even more amazing heart, and she owns it. And she absolutely does, pulling the hair back. But so I do want to hear you kind of share a desire or dream that you have for the future. You've already accomplished so much, even at 26 years old. But what steps are you taking in order to make this new dream a reality? So share the dream, and what are you doing?
Yes, so I'm planning to compete for Miss Texas at the end of June, Miss Texas USA. And competing Miss California was wonderful, and making it so close was a wonderful experience. But I just feel like if I can get my Miss Texas title, that will be so much more rewarding in my home state. So that is my next close goal.
Okay.
But I think it's another stepping stone to my ultimate dream. I obviously want to grow my social media, and you understand there's influencers everywhere. It's very saturated, but I want to be someone who's sharing my experiences. You know, you can find so much knowledge from different people, but no one has your culmination of experience. And I think everyone I've learned from, every pageant I've done, you know, all of my experiences can really be inspirational and motivational to people. So these are stepping stones to my overall business that I hope to create one day. I have the Queen Factor podcast myself, but I do coaching here and there. I think when you are a successful pageant coach, having credibility of going to Miss USA really helps you. So not only making change in your state and getting to spread my service with disabled children, I think sharing my ways I've grown my confidence with other young women who are looking to be business professionals, work on their interview skills, get that next job, or compete in a pageant, or just work on their fitness. I'd like to be a one-stop shop for changing lives. Yes.
Excellent. So it's funny, whenever I decided to kind of go on my self-improvement journey from like a physical aspect, back in December of 2022, I ended up working with a personal trainer named Connor Richardson. And, Connor, he's one of the trainers that just kind of like charges $100 an hour. And it was a very like transactional experience. And what I'd communicated to Connor was, dude, you have this ability to bond with ultra high net worth individuals in the Houston community. You need to be a full concierge, right? I kind of planted the seed with him. I'm like, you can work on fitness, you can work on fashion, you can work on social life, nightlife, confidence. How do I approach women, right? Sure. Maybe even help his clients with, I don't know, like finasteride hair growth products and skincare routines.
How have you done it?
How many divorced men might have $5 million, $10 million in the bank, and you drop them off right here in the Galleria area in the James apartment complex, and they're literally clueless. They're hanging out at Steak 48 on a Thursday night, and they don't know if that girl's working or if she's on a girls' night, right? Yes. And so I hope that he takes me up on this, because you can be a one-stop shop, and, a high net worth individual, whether it's a woman or a man, paying somebody like you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month for a bespoke experience to level up their life in so many different areas. That's a nominal expense to pay. So I really hope that you figure that business side out.
It's a long-term goal.
Evolving past just a fitness coach, right?
Yes, thank you.
Well, good. So can you share a funny or lighthearted story from your time kind of like in the beauty pageant world? And I know we don't call it beauty pageant, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
But share a story that might surprise your audience, if you don't mind.
Oh, let's see. Honestly, there are so many different, funny things I think that you don't see on the other side of pageants. It's like we're displaying beauty. It is part of it. They just don't necessarily call it, but it is part of it. You're displaying your most beautiful self, but you don't know what's going on backstage. Okay. And my boyfriend's very competitive. He did tennis in college, and he's like, do you guys talk mess to each other and like really like get competitive like that? And I said, absolutely not. The whole point of being a pageant queen and being a title holder is that you have great character and compassion and poise and politeness to others, and you care for others. And so backstage, we're all helping each other out, and I consider myself now, after competing in pageants for so long, like pageant mom almost, because you see it's really wonderful when a girl is coming for their first pageant, and you learn every year what you need and then the ways to go and what products to use. And no one knew in my little group about butt glue. Do you know what that is?
No.
Butt glue. Yeah, so that...
I mean, I have a vision on what I think that it is.
Yes, so I have everything in my kit. I have the double tape, I have safety pins, I got spray, you put a sunscreen on your legs to make them shine.
Sure.
So there's so many different things. But all these girls are coming around, and I'll share anything. I get extras for this reason. I got shoe grips so you don't slide. And my mom will buy them. She goes, yeah, give it. My mom sews up this girl's dress for her. So we're always helping out other girls. But it was just hilarious. The girls are coming around. They're like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's just butt glue. You roll it on like a deodorant. You put it on your butt, and you put your swimsuit around it so your swimsuit doesn't come up when you're walking. No one wants to see that, believe it or not.
Oh, well, trust me, there's plenty of people that want to see it, just not in a pageant environment.
But right, not that kind of pageant, right? You're supposed to be covered mostly.
It's not a bikini contest at Bottle Blonde.
Yes, bikini contest is different. Like Miss Simpson USA maybe, but this you want to be covered. And so I'm putting it on, and they're like, oh, mine keeps riding up. They're like, can I use it? And I'm like, you know what? Just wipe it off. I'm like, yes, you could use it. This next girl comes. I had about 10, 15 girls asking to use my butt glue, and it was hilarious. So I think just teaching them what that even is was so funny.
Well, let's get you sponsored by butt glue now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, well,
sponsored
fantastic.
by butt glue.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a father. I've got 3 kids, 11, 9, and 7. And when you said butt glue, the first thing that I visualized was this Boudreaux's butt paste, which is like a lifesaver for, eliminating diaper rashes.
Oh,
but anyways,
there you go.
Any parent knows what it is.
Same
I promise
thing.
you that.
No.
Well, good. Well, can you share a story about a time whenever you overcame a particular fear and maybe how that impacted your life?
Yes, recently I had a crazy year last year, I guess, because maybe if you can tell, I'm a little bit of a type A person, and I've had it planned out in my mind of what career I was going to do, what path I was going to take. I had been dating someone for almost 6 years last year, and I thought, like, this is the one. This is my, my life is set. I'm still working on my career and my pageant goals, but I got this part figured out. I got my home in LA figured out, and I'll go back to Texas later on when I want to have kids. And, things progressed in relationships as they do, or degressed, I guess, and I made the decision within 2 weeks to end my relationship and leave LA and move back home in with my mom at 25 years old.
Wow.
And this was right as I was competing for Miss California. I was packing up my stuff. I left 1 box for my pageant stuff, and I ended up moving right back home with everything in my apartment in my room. And I could have stayed in LA, but I didn't feel like downsizing. I didn't feel like struggling more, not sharing expenses and things like that. And it just felt like time to be, heal at home with my mom. And that was probably the most humbling thing, but the most scary thing to do, because I felt so secure for a while, and I knew that uprooting my life was going to change so many things, and I would be kind of, yes, returning to something familiar, but leaving my career, diving into a new environment where I don't have connections, in the business world. And I went through all my savings. I've grown it, it's not saying much as a recent college grad, but it was really, really tough to make that transition and find, I'm back on my feet, but just have that transitional humbling period that people don't talk about. And I explained it to people, and they're like, well, try a midlife reset, and they make me feel better about that, But I think that was something I just didn't prepare for, that you can change paths and start again, and some situations, you learn from them, and you start over, and you're going to be fine. And things are on the up and up, but it was crazy. The next week, I literally shared in my interview, and I was like, I just broke up with my boyfriend. I was like, I am struggling right now, but I am so happy to be here, and I'm pursuing my goals, and it's not going to stop me. And they loved it. They loved it. So it was a very intimate moment between us. Yeah.
Oh, well, fantastic.
And I'm not afraid to share those things.
Well, truthfully, I think after our viewers see this podcast episode and they see how confident and well-spoken you are, and then obviously having that background, in journalism and in social media, if you wanted to pursue a career in business, I know that I would be interested in hiring you, and I think that many of our clients would be interested in hiring you as well. But this is definitely an opportunity for new beginnings.
Yes.
Maybe you can learn how to edit video, and you can take Gabriel's role.
I do edit video.
Whenever he leaves. But
Oh, no.
he's moving to LA, actually.
Oh, yes.
Maybe he can move in with your ex-boyfriend. He's got an extra room.
Yeah, you guys get a room together. He was a fine roommate, honestly.
Well, good. Well, I do want to ask you, so how do you stay true to yourself and your values in an industry where it really emphasizes external appearances?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's so easy to utilize that for your own gain. I just know, like we spoke about, you can have beauty to offer and you can have sex appeal to offer as a pretty woman. But, that to me it doesn't fulfill me. I know I have so much other knowledge and substance to me. So I feel like so many people can easily, and no shame to them, because honestly, they're entrepreneurs in their own and they're working their way to the bank with whatever they're showcasing in their content or OnlyFans or whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But I just come from a set of morals and values where I know that I am much more than a pretty face. And so utilizing my body in that way, it's funny because I'll wear something and I'll someone else might wear that and I'll be like, I gotta cover up more. And I'm not saying I'm a modest dresser all the time, but I like to keep my Instagram decently modest and it just depends. And I don't knock women who show that off. I think they're doing really probably great things with their business as well, and that's their prerogative. But just for me personally, maybe it's the Southern thing, but I just know that I'd rather you listen to my voice than just stare at my body.
No, I totally understand. And I think that what resonates with me, first of all, there's no shortage of wealthy men that would love to be married to a pageant queen trophy wife, right? That maybe thinks that they would be able to elevate his social status to some extent. But just like, myself, when I first got divorced in 2019 and I started dating 2020, 2021, and, there was no shortage of women that would go on a date with a rich guy that would take them to the hot new restaurant and give them Instagrammable content to post, right?
Yeah.
But that left me feeling like, used and unfulfilled, right?
Yes.
And so I quickly realized that it really wasn't my wealth or my success that was my superpower, I think, on connecting with women. It was my ability to have deep, meaningful conversations and to really understand the why behind the what. It was certainly my experience in career coaching and mentorship and development. And then you never have to worry about, is your partner going to find somebody that has more money or is willing to spend more money on you, right? And in to your case, you never have to look over your shoulder and wonder if your partner is looking at the hotter girl, right? That's 2% less body fat. That's 2 inches taller, right?
Right.
Or
and that's
2
what
years
I said.
younger.
I said you could, you could find someone else hotter than me or not hotter than me, but they're not going to be the same person or have the same compatibility as we do, or have my personality. And I think,
it's so mature of you. I don't know. I feel like you're a very rare creature, to be quite honest. Yeah. And then our mutual friend, I think, is very rare as well. She has the ability to really understand the why behind the what. So we're good. So let me ask you this. So share your thoughts on the intersection of sports and social issues.
Yes.
And what initiatives have you been involved in? Because I know that's been in the media in recent years as well.
Yes. Also a tough topic because we actually had to write a dissertation on something similar in my journalism 444 class because they say there was a time I think they told LeBron to shut up and dribble, something like that. I think they told him that, and a long time ago. But there was, I think we were studying when it was the NBA, and what was it? There was something from a general manager of the Rockets defending some protest in China, and people, and maybe it's because they have a deal. The NBA in China, they did not allow it. I think he was fired. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what happened. But I believe if you have a platform, it is your choice to be a social activist. It becomes hard when you feel like you're speaking for your organization. But I think that just comes with the territory. I mean, it is definitely a pageant queen's job to have a social initiative, but it is tricky when you have opinions and there's certain things that maybe you don't advocate so heavily on because they are controversial. But I also think that's tough. You can get a top 5 question and you can have one judge that believes this way and another judge that believes this way. So what are you going to advocate for unless it's something most people will tend to agree on? They used to tell us to ride the line when you have those kind of questions, and I think that's bogus, honestly, because if you have something that 2 people can disagree, I'm going to share my opinion, but there's a way to phrase it. This is a very controversial topic, and no matter what I say, someone in this room is going to disagree with me. But I think if we can learn to listen to each other and agree to disagree, we'll actually, learn something new and broaden our knowledge and experience. And so I personally believe this. And there was a teen, and it was Miss Florida teen, and she won because they asked her something on President Trump, and she said, this is her top 5 answers. She goes, I don't think my personal opinion matters on this and don't really think it's appropriate to be asking a teen. And she won the whole thing.
Stop.
She won it. But I do. It just
but that
depends
was
on...
authentic.
Yes,
that was her real and authentic,
and it depends on the
unscripted
situation,
answer.
you know, like it depends on the actual event or what's happening, and there's things that everyone, I believe, should be an advocate for. And so I think you should utilize your platform, but it's hard for them being within the reins of their organization.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's controversial for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for answering that. That was a great answer. So I want to ask you, I have 2 more questions, but can you discuss a specific moment in your journey whenever you felt a deep connection with your audience or your community? And let's talk about that, right? Because a lot of times people can think that social media is this fictional world.
Yes.
And to some extent, in many ways that it is, if people misuse it or abuse it. But I've been able to meet some of my very best friends on social media through showcasing like authentic connections and commentary. But tell me about an experience where you felt a deep connection with your audience.
Absolutely. Something I battle with every day when I post content is I cringe at myself. I'm literally like, no one...
You're so repulsive. It's so bad,
I will tell myself, like, no one cares about this. Why am I posting this? Why am I'm getting 20 likes? Like, who cares? Who cares about this? Why am I doing this? Like, does anyone receive this? And whether it's in the pageant world or it's just 1 or 2 people, I mean, there's been a few people I've coached and everything, but hearing just one message from someone that I needed this today. I'll share motivational things. I'm religious. I'll share a message, a prayer from God. I posted, this one girl posted about her brother was struggling with addiction, and my brother struggles with addiction and is doing well now. But I reached out to her. And I think any message or any motivational, I saw you work out today and that made me go work out. That is enough for me.
Yeah.
And that is... Even if it's small right now, I know I'm going to expand the audience. But if I'm making one person feel a little bit better and they had a tough day, because I know when I see that, I receive it well. And a tear sheds when I watch Caitlin Bristow's story yesterday, reading from a book. I'm like, wow, why did that hit me so hard? But if one person can be changed from my content, I am feeling so gratified from it. So I know I'm making connections, whether they're small or large right now, and they're going to grow and grow. But I just hearing that people's lives were changed or made their day better is everything to me. Yeah.
I can really resonate with that as well. And I think that, the reason why I started this podcast is I really wanted to elevate, the individuals that I connected with on an authentic personal basis. And being in a position where I could spotlight someone, it's like, that's an interesting person, right? Yes. And bring them into the studio and get to know each other over the course of an hour and kind of like skip a shortcut of like, getting to know you over 20 different times of meeting,
yes,
right? But, it really breeds a lot of authenticity and vulnerability, and we do a good job of cutting these shorts. And I get countless DMs from people saying, like, this is exactly what I needed. Yeah. I was a guest on a podcast a few months ago, and I talked about, the regret and shame and failure that I carry from a failed marriage that I had in 2019 after being married for over 9 years. And that specific episode got over 250,000 views on Instagram.
Yes.
In fact, we had another individual. Her name is Haneen Al-Qureshi, and she's running for Miss Texas.
Houston. I just followed her. She's absolutely stunning. Yeah. I just looked at her the other day.
So Haneen is one of my best friends.
Oh, wow.
And I've actually gotten to know her business partner very well, Daryl. Okay. But she's amazing. She's the CEO of a boutique insurance brokerage. She's a beast, a killer. She will outwork every single person in the pageant world. But this is just a little personal goal of hers that she probably had as a child, and I'm really excited to see her achieve this goal. But she had a reel that got over 280,000 views where she had talked about getting kidnapped in Iraq whenever before she became a refugee and immigrated here. But just having those shorts and hearing how they resonate with individuals, and that's actually how I came to know Natalia, is she resonated with one of the shorts and we connected over that. But
vulnerability.
vulnerability and authenticity. And I
Yeah.
think that you can really kind of feel the emotion whenever people are sharing stories.
Yes.
And I can 100% without a doubt say that I felt your emotion on so many of like your experiences and your social causes and the things that are near and dear to you. There is one person that I want to introduce you to other than Haneen, which is definitely a no-brainer.
Yes.
But my friend Kelly Raybon, she's actually a social media influencer. I don't know if she would call herself this, but she's a mommy blogger that's a fashion and mom lifestyle influencer.
Yes.
And she was actually an investigative reporter and an Emmy nominee whenever she was at ABC in San Antonio. And she is an amazing communicator, and she's been able to channel that kind of talent, if you will, into a career in social influence, right?
Yeah.
And she also does some other stuff, but she's very involved in sports. She's involved in social media, and I think that she could be a big mentor for you kind of on the social side, right? Sure. So that would be exciting. And so, well, good. Kind of in closing, I want to ask you,
Yes.
I think I already know the answer, but what are you most excited about over the next 6 to 12 months?
I have just got back on my groove. I feel like I go through like whenever you're in the winter and the weather's bad, and I'm just like, I always say motivation comes and goes and discipline will keep you going, but I just feel my zest for life coming back after a hard season, and God takes you through peaks and valleys to make you stronger through the peaks, and I'm just feeling like I'm on the rise of, not expecting all of my dreams to come true immediately, but I have like my work ethic and my motivation and my zeal back, and I am so excited to keep sharing that. I'm motivating my community, whether it's at F45 in the gym and growing my businesses. I know I'm attracting and manifesting financial success, of course, but I am really looking forward to Miss Texas, and I crowned my successor for America's Most Beautiful as well, so some new girls' dreams will be coming true soon. So I have photo shoots. I'm really just excited for the year, and it's my true presence now in Texas. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be back and growing and ever growing.
Well, good. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
you for sharing your path to success that you've achieved at such a young age, and sharing more about your mission, your vision, and your values that are going to propel you further in your career and personal life. So I'll see you at my birthday party, I think, next Friday.
RSVP. I'm coming.
Awesome.
I got it in the calendar.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you so much.